Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to day two, and thank you for joining us again. So today we'll be going over university research, university preparation, and application process. Um, for those of you that don't know me from yesterday, allow me to introduce myself again briefly. I am a university admissions counselor. I've been a university admissions counselor for 3.5 years. I'm working at Success as a counselor. Previously, I studied in the US. I was a US high school graduate and also a Colorado State University graduate with a bachelor's in business management. I've also worked as a project management executive at Daiichi Life and then project management officer at KBZ Bank, and I've supported several students to getting scholarships as well as acceptances to top universities, such as the one listed below. All right, so let's start with a quick poll. So, to those of you that were here yesterday, I'm sure you know how to participate already. I'm just going to go over this quickly for those that are just joining us today. So, how to participate is I will be sharing a few questions just for me to get to know you better because you know who I'm already, but I would love to get to know you guys a little bit better too. So there are just some questions, and I want you to answer them honestly. Or if you don't know how to respond, I'm pretty sure I put in an option that says unsure. So there will be a reaction that correlates to the answer, and I just want you to react with what you feel is most relevant to you. All right. So we are going to be starting with the first question. What country are you most interested in studying? So you can react with the reactions on the right, and but if you're unsure, there's a still unsure option. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds, and then once you have your reactions in, this will help me better understand what you guys have in mind. Okay, so there's a lot in Asia. Okay, actually. Okay, I think there's variety. I don't see much Australia, which I guess that's safe, especially with the current visa situation. I see some, mostly Asia. Okay, some of there are still unsure. Some in the US or UK. Okay. All right. Thank you for participating. Now that I know a little bit more about which countries that you have in mind, we'll move on to the next question. All right. So I want to better understand what stage you guys are currently at. Are you still exploring? Are you still researching? Are you preparing applications? Are you ready to apply? Or are you not sure where to start? So I'll give you 30 seconds if you can help me by reacting and sharing where you are at. So I see a lot that are already researching. Okay, some are still exploring. Oh, okay, a few are already preparing applications. Okay, a few no idea where to start. That's completely normal. Okay, a variety so far. Oh no, I see a sad face somewhere. All right, thank you for answering. Okay, so now that I know where you are at in terms of application, we'll move on to the third question, which is what do you think is the hardest part of applying to university? So this will help me understand what you guys are struggling with the most, and then I can tackle that as we move through the presentation. All right, so 30 seconds starts now, and you can start responding. So I see a lot of people that said finding scholarships. I agree. Um, everything feels hard. Yes, I understand. Writing essays. Yep, everything feels hard. Okay. Academic requirements, okay. Writing essays, okay. All right. So to those of you that responded with everything feels hard, don't worry because after the end of day two, hopefully everything will be much simpler and much easier for you to get started with. All right. So I think this is the last question. I want to know what you guys think when it comes to choosing a university. So for you personally, which one do you feel is the most important when choosing a university? Is it high ranking? Is it affordability scholarship? Is it the country that you're going to and the lifestyle that they have, or is it the career opportunities that are available? All right, I'll give you 30 seconds. Hi, affordability scholarship, okay, career opportunities. See a lot of affordability scholarships, okay. Career opportunities, okay. Country lifestyle, yep, that's totally valid. Career opportunities, okay. All right. Thank you guys for answering. So, as we move through the presentation, I will be helping you guys figure out how exactly to choose and which ones to prioritize as you move through the as you start your application process. All right. So I think that one of the biggest mistakes that students make is choosing a country based on like TikTok or Facebook. But I mean, a place can look really great online, right? But the question is, can you really imagine yourself living there for, 3, 4 years? I mean, will you be able to handle the weather, the food, the language, especially if it's not like an English speaking country? Or being away from family or I mean even living independently. I feel that these are things that students don't always think about. I mean, I've met students that chose a country because tuition was cheap and then later they found out that rent was, extremely expensive. Or I've met students who chose universities because of rankings, but then they realized that this university wasn't actually where they wanted to be and that they didn't like the location of the university. I mean, when it comes down to it, a university isn't just where you're going to be studying. It is where you're going to be studying, but it's also where you're going to be living for the next few years of your life. So it's really important that you choose one that fits you best. So when you're choosing where to study abroad, I would say start with these four as the starting point. Look at all associated costs. I mean, in addition to looking at the tuition of the country, also look at what are the cost of living like, what's the rent like, what are the grocery bills like every week. So try and understand these so that you have a bigger picture of what your finances will be like living in that country. And next, try and look at the language and lifestyle. I mean, if you're studying in an English speaking country, I think that's pretty straightforward. But if you're going towards somewhere that has a different language, try and see, is this somewhere that you'll be able to adapt, or maybe you can consider picking up a third, fourth language and other things. What can you do after university once you graduate? And of course, what's the classroom like? Because some universities, some countries rely purely um, edu on your grades, the test scores that you get, while others focus more on, participation and attendance. So now that you kind of get an idea of how to start picking where you want to study abroad, let's look at choosing universities. So ranking matters, but rankings should not be the starting point. I mean, okay, think about it this way, right? If someone asks, what car should I buy? You're not going to tell them buy the most expensive one, right? You're going to tell them, okay, you're going to ask them, what's your budget like? How many passengers will you have, or what are you going to use it for? So the same is going to apply to your university. I mean, would you rather attend like a university that's maybe ranked 10, but you're happy, you feel supported, and you can afford the tuition, or would you rather attend a university that's like top ranked, but you're stressed, you're isolated, and you're struggling financially? So the next few slides will help you kind of answer that question a little bit better. So just to recap, don't start with rankings. Consider these instead. Oops, sorry. consider these instead because these are going to be the more important factors as you choose which university you want to study. All right. So now that you are more aware of like which university, what type of university to pick, let's look at how to choose a program. All right. So first, I feel like students, they spend hours, like researching university rankings, but they don't really look at what kind of classes they'll be taking. I mean, if you look at a university, but if you don't look at the actual classes that you will be taking as a student there, that's kind of backwards. You're not attending the university purely for its ranking because you're attending classes, you're attending the modules there. So, look at the curriculum, look at what they teach you in the university and ask yourself, like, like, do you see yourself studying these subjects for 3 or 4 years? And a good place to get a feel of what the classes that you'll be taking are is to go to the university, go to the website of the major that you pick. I mean, we talked about that yesterday, right? How to pick the major that you'll be studying. So go to the website of the major that you'll be studying, and typically within that page, they they share what the modules are or what classes you'll be taking year by year. So that's the best place for you to find what classes you'll be taking. Some schools have it, some schools don't, but you can look at it for the schools that do have it. And after that, also, think about where you want to work because once you're done with university, you have to start thinking about what kind of environment you want to work in, your day-to-day job, etc. Do you want a degree where you can work, where you'll be able to work like internationally? And then another thing as well is to watch out for hidden rules because some degrees, especially like highly specialized degrees such as medicine or sometimes even engineering, they have very specific requirements. Sometimes they have mandatory internships. Sometimes they require that you take a local language course so that you can graduate. So make sure that you read through this so that you're not surprised when um, you're faced with like a hidden rule. And lastly, sometimes for students that maybe still don't know what major to pick, some universities allow you to apply with a general major. So you take the first 1 to 2 years, you do some general education courses for the first, like maybe like the first year, and then you get to pick later on which major you want to apply. So some universities do allow this, not all. So if this is where you find yourself, then you can still you can still apply for undecided. You can still apply for general education majors to universities that permit that. All right. So as you start looking at universities, at programs, these are 5 things that every student should research. All right. So, think of yourself as like a detective, I guess. Your job is to investigate not each person, but each university that you'll be applying to. So, for each point, like try and consider, okay, does the university offer the major that you actually want to do? Sometimes you might pick a university because they have really good rankings, but they may not always have the major that you want to study. So, does the university offer your intended major? And next, can you realistically meet the academic requirements? Because, especially highly competitive universities, they're going to have very competitive grades and very competitive academic requirements. So, if this is what's in your university, um, is this something that you'll be able to meet realistically? And then the next, can your family afford it? Um, will you be able to, or on the other hand, will you be able to find scholarships? Do they provide scholarships that can help you with these expenses? And next, location. Like, would you enjoy living there? Like, if you're someone that, enjoys like summer, if you enjoy the hot weather, would you be able to live in like a really cold state, really cold country, for instance? And then, most importantly, I mean, what happens after graduation? What are the career opportunities that are available? And then one thing to note as well is you have also got to find if the country that you're going to is one that allows you to search for work after graduation, or if it's a country that requires you to, go back immediately after graduation. So that's one thing for you to include during your university research process as well. All right. So this is actually a sample template that I think will be helpful as you do your university research. I mean, I used Google Sheets for this, but you can also use Microsoft Excel or really whatever works for you. You can even use Word, Microsoft Word, or Google Docs. And here I've added the columns that I've added are the name of the university, the country it's located, the location, the rankings, um, the program choice, what major you're applying for, academic requirements, the tests that are needed, the tuition, accommodation, etc. But you can really customize it based on the what's important to you or what you want to prioritize. All right. So let's get started with kind of like understanding, how to get admitted to a university. So we're going to start with the most important one of all, which is admission requirements. So this is, I would say, where students typically panic. I mean, um, maybe just to make it a little easier, I want you to think of like applying to university like maybe like baking a cake, like different universities want like different ingredients. Maybe some care more about grades or strong like extracurricular activities, or some require tests, other might need interviews, but maybe others require like everything in here. But your job is to, simply understand what the university wants of you. So here we have academics, which will go over all of these, which we will go over in more detail. So I will skip over this. All right. So, um, I know this slide looks a little intimidating, but what I want to mention here is, I mean, there is no single qualification that is used by everyone. Some students might study A levels, some might have studied the OSSDs, some might have studied the IB diploma, or maybe the US high school diploma, like the AP, or maybe some might have even taken GED, or some might even apply with their Myanmar grade 12 certificate. But the main thing is to always check the academic requirements of the university that you're applying to. Typically, most universities accept all of these qualifications, but what you will have to check is the specific qualifications. So the UK, for instance, although the also UK is closed for now, they typically list down the specific A levels that you need to get. So if you want to get into like UCL, for instance, you're gonna expect like an A star, A star, A at best. So um it's your job to check what academic requirements the school has. I mean, most of the time they do accept a variety of curriculums, understanding the variety of curriculums exist. So please check what are the specific academic requirements for each of the university based on your own curriculum. And another thing is this, I feel, is going to be especially important for Myanmar students. Some universities will accept the grade 12 certificate directly, especially those in Malaysia, or some like like select private universities in Singapore. But there are very few that do accept a direct entry using the Myanmar grade 12 program. Or others require that you do like a foundation pathway to get like additional qualifications. I mean, different universities have different requirements, so it's just important that you research what your requirements are to confirm, your eligibility for the program. And in addition to the Grade 12 certificate, what other things you can do is that you can also take these tests to kind of like boost your certificate. For example, if you already have the grade 12 certificate, you can consider like taking the SAT. And then I mean you will need the IELTS either way. So so with that coupled together, it kind of makes your academics your qualifications stronger, but you just need to check with each of the university on their website, or if they don't have it on the website, you can always email them if this is something that they will accept. Okay, so now that we kind of understand the um, academic qualifications that are needed, let's go through different tests that you'll need. Okay, so just to recap, so far we have your kind of like high school qualifications, right? And then now this is going to be standardized tests. So these are the most common standardized tests that exist and that maybe some of you might need. So the first one that I think maybe most of you already know is the SAT. So it measures both your English and math skills, and it's required by most undergraduate program, or it's optional. And these are the countries that either require you to submit it, or it gives you the option of submitting it. And next, you have the IELTS, which is your English language proficiency. So IELTS is going to be required for all majors, regardless of whatever major you pick. It is required for all countries, all majors, because you're an international student. And the next is the UCAT. So this is going to be especially important for those wanting to study medicine or dentistry in UK or Australia or New Zealand. It's an aptitude test for healthcare programs. And the next as well is for UK. It's the TMUA, which is also a math test, and it's required in most engineering and math programs, especially by top universities like UCL. Okay, the next one is a standardized test that was recently introduced. I think it was only introduced last year. So it's called the CSCA. It is required by um, Chinese universities. So basically, what it does is that it assesses the academic readiness. And if you are going for an English speaking program in China, typically you only have to take one subject, which is math. Um, and it is required for most local universities in China. Um, and then next, you have the LNAT. So the LNAT is also for UK, is an admissions test for law, not to be confused with the LSATs, which is for law in the US. But LNAT is for an undergraduate program. LSAT is for after you graduate from university in the US. Okay, and the next is the IMAT and the ISAT. So these are entrance exams for medicine applicants, and this is for bachelor in medicine programs. The IMAT is for okay, sorry, the IMAT is for Italy. I forgot to fix UK here. So the IMAT is for Italy, and the ISAT is for Australia. So one thing that I want to emphasize here is always check what sort of standardized tests you need to take in addition to your high school diploma. If you're doing a highly specialized major such as engineering or computer science or medicine, it is very likely that you will have to do one of these standardized tests. So uh, So always check first and then prepare, and always make sure that you check when these standardized tests are available. The SAT, for instance, is available most of the year. The CSCA is offered maybe December, January, February, March. UCAT is offered September, October, November. So it's very important that you also check the timing, the test dates of the exams that you will have to take. Okay, so the next is IELTS. So I'm sure most of you are already familiar with the IELTS. I mean, it's required because universities just want proof that you can study effectively in an English speaking academic program and environment. So typically, for English proficiency tests, you have the IELTS, you have the TOEFL, and then you have Duolingo. So typically, these are the minimum requirements. Some schools allow you to get a minimum six. Some schools allow you to get a minimum 6.5, but some schools have a minimum for each section. For example, you cannot get less than a 6.5 or less than a 6. Even if you have an overall band score of a 6, you still cannot get less than a 6 for a particular section. So most schools do state in their website what are the minimum requirements. So this is just a general snapshot for you to get a better idea. Duolingo, one thing for Duolingo is that um, not all schools will allow you to submit Duolingo, especially the more competitive universities. So it's always important that you check first, which if your university allows you to submit your Duolingo. But the safest would be either IELTS or TOEFL because it's very widely accepted by almost every university. And sometimes they may allow you to not take the IELTS and they may allow you to submit these scores here in place of TOEFL. But in order to waive it is kind of a more complicated process. So unless you have really good like full marks in each of these, in one of these, I recommend that you stick to the IELTS. Okay. So recapping, so far, we've gone through what you need in terms of high school diploma. We've gone through the standardized tests that you need to answer based on the major that you choose. And then we've gone through the IELTS test that you need to take. So the next one here is it's I would say one of my favorite slides because this is how to balance your academics and extracurricular activities. So sometimes most students think that it is only grades that schools look at, while a majority of the schools do look at grades. I would say a lot of them also look at your non-academic factors, like do you have any leadership experiences? Do you have any volunteering experiences? Were you a part of any of the projects? Have you done any internships? And then they might probably require that you write essays as well. So not all universities focus solely on grades. So, I mean, it doesn't matter too much if you get a bad grade for some of the universities because they will want to look at these factors as well. Especially for the countries like the US, they lean more towards non-academic factors rather than academics because they kind of have a more holistic admissions process. But for now, because the US is still closed, I just recommend that you try and get really good grades because most of the other countries are lean more towards academics when considering a student's acceptance. All right. So sometimes, in addition to everything that we talked about just now, there might be additional academic requirements. All right. So depending on the program, grades and English score, they might not be enough. Some schools want additional evidence that you're a good fit for their school and a good fit for their program. So if you're applying to any of these courses, architecture, art, it is very likely that they will ask you for a student portfolio. So what a portfolio is basically most of the time it's a PowerPoint presentation that showcases all the artworks that you've done. Um, and you get to talk about what the artworks are, how long you took for it. So it's a collection of your artworks that demonstrate your skills, your creativity, and your potential to the school. So why schools request this is because they want to kind of see your thought process. They want to see your growth, and they want to know if you're genuinely interested in this field that you're going for. Okay. And next, interviews. So, I believe the interview section will also be covered in more detail in day 5 of the bootcamp, but I'll just briefly introduce this as well. So, especially for competitive programs like medicine, nursing, law, maybe some scholarships, and almost all Hong Kong universities require an interview. So it's going to be an online interview because they want to kind of assess your motivation, like why do you want to study at this school? Why do you want to study this program? They want to they want to know your communication skills, and they want to get to know you. They want to know if you're suitable for their school and their program. All right. And the last one is going to be entrance exams. So some universities, in addition to SAT, in addition to other like your high school diploma, they also have their own entrance exams. So these are separate from IELTS, separate from SAT, and they depend on the university. And sometimes it might include like written assessments, or it might include like subject-specific questions like math, physics, or problem-solving exercise, and others. So this is why and these entrance exams, I would say, also are typically requested by European schools. So this is why it's really important that you research universities early so that you can understand what exactly all the requirements are, and you kind of know, and then every school university is different. So you can get a better picture of what all the requirements are for the universities that you pick. Okay, so this is a very simplified timeline. I mean, the entire presentation can actually be summarized into these 7 steps. So this is where some of you are at. This is where some of you are already at. So you start with research. So take in mind everything that we discussed today. You start with research, and then once you have researched universities, you build a university list. You have a list of universities using the template that I shared earlier. You have maybe a list of universities that you want to apply to, and then you look, and then you already have a list of documents. So you start preparing the documents. Maybe we'll go through this in more detail in the next slides too, but you prepare your documents, and then after you're done preparing your documents, some of the schools require essays, so you start writing essays. And once you're all done, you submit your applications. But keep in mind, sometimes schools require that you submit additional documents. Like for example, if you're still in high school, you typically apply with the current grades that you have, and then once you're done, once you're done with high school, you get your final score. Schools require that you submit your final transcript. So um, it's important that you keep that in mind as well. And then, after that, you receive your decisions. Have you been accepted? Have you been rejected? And then once you've been accepted, you can start applying for your visa. So this is the simplified process. We will have a non-simplified version in the next following slides. Okay, so this slide may look a little intimidating, but you don't usually need to prepare everything. But the key is just, simply knowing what type of documents the universities commonly ask for. And I would say sometimes even if you have a really strong applications, it can still be delayed if any of these documents are missing, because being organized is just as important as your grades to these universities. Um, Sometimes recommendation letters take time. Sometimes your school needs more time to issue transcripts, or maybe some documents might require like official stamps or verification. So, the earlier that you prepare, the less stressful that the application process is. So let's just quickly go through what type of documents school universities commonly ask for. Academic transcripts, your high school diploma, your high school grades, standardized test score. So if they require the SAT or the UCAT, whatever relevant to your major, you'll be submitting it. And then your passport scan. So especially as an international student, they require that you submit the first two pages of your passport. And then of course, sometimes they request a passport size photo, and they require the IELTS results, personal statement. Sometimes they require the essays, recommendation letter from your teachers, resume, CV, especially I would say European universities require that. And financial documents, this is the most important one. They require the bank statement. Most of the time, you do need to show for universities. Some require you to submit your bank statement during the application process instead of during the visa process. So for financial documents, it's important that you have at least 1.5 year worth of tuition fees in your bank account. Not only tuition fees, but also like living expenses and other miscellaneous stuff that you will be using. So financial documents, medical fitness certificates. Sometimes they require that you're medically well, that you're healthy. So it's like a health report. You require that. Sometimes you need immunization or vaccination reports. And sometimes they need a police clearance certificate, which is basically like yes, I can talk. So it's very important that this one, actually the last one, is typically required by Chinese universities. So that's why it is very important that you research what documents it is that you require so that you can prepare these beforehand. I mean, you won't be able to get the police clearance certificate like the next day. Sometimes medical reports take 3 working days. So these are the documents that you commonly need. You don't need all of them. It depends on the university, but this is just to help you get a better picture of what documents you might need as you apply. All right, personal statements. So this is actually going to be covered in day 3, I believe. So I won't go into too much detail, but this is just an overview. Um, One thing I do want to point out, I feel that a lot of students make the mistake of trying to sound like impressive. They think about, what does the university want to hear? Like, what does the university want to know about me? But it's not it's not like, okay, what does the university want to know? It's more of like, what do you want to share with the university? I mean, admissions officers, they've read like thousands of essays. They can tell when someone is faking it, they can tell when someone used AI. So I would say the strongest essays are normally the ones where it's kind of like you telling a story. It's not like you writing what you think they want to hear. It's like you telling a story about yourself. Um, like I said, if you want to learn more about writing a personal statement, I recommend joining day 3, which is tomorrow, and to learn more about this. But generally, in the essays, the more common essays that they ask is, why do you want to study this program? Why do you want to study at this university? And why are you a strong candidate for their program? So, general rule of thumb, try to avoid generic essays, try to avoid AI generated essays, because these officers will know. They've read hundreds and thousands of essays. They will know when you use AI. I'm a university admissions counselor. I work with students on their essay. I can tell when they use AI. So please avoid that. Also avoid copying online examples, because this example might have helped that particular student get into their university, but it's not necessarily going to help you if this essay doesn't sound like you. And like I said, please avoid writing what you think admission officers will want to hear, because this is more about sharing your story, telling universities why you want to study at their school. All right, recommendation letters. So I always recommend students to choose teachers that you know well and that know you well. Choose teachers that you've worked with, choose teachers that you've known for a little longer, and choose teachers that have taught you recently. So if you are going to be requesting recommendation letters, um, you should request it from like teachers that taught you um, preferably within 12th grade, and try and avoid last minute requests. So we'll go through the timing of when you need to request recommendation letters from your teachers in the next few slides as well. But try and avoid choosing teachers mainly because they have like a good title. They're like, okay, head of something, or maybe they're like the principal. Try and choose teachers that actually know you. And one thing to note as well is most universities will require a minimum of one recommendation letters. Some require two. So if you're attending like if you're in school, if you're attending school, the easiest to request is from your school counselor or your teacher. If you're not attending school, if you're in a non-traditional pathway, you can still request it from your tuition teachers. You'll have at least one or two, so you can request it from your tuition teachers. But but most schools do not allow you to request it from your parents or like um your relatives, obviously. So it's recommended that you choose teachers that know you best. And then it's always good to have at least three, but at least one. But most schools might require two, three. So it really just depends on the school. Okay, so I want you all to just take a deep breath, because this is going to be a very detailed session. I won't go through everything that's listed in the slide, but you can take photos. You can take photos. You can take screenshots, because this is going to come in handy. And I think this is the ultimate timeline for your application process. Okay, so um, like I said, the section's gonna be complicated, but I want you guys to focus on one thing, which is that university applications are not completed in a week. So successful applications typically take many months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year to complete. So let's start with um your master application timeline. Okay, so the reason that most applications feel overwhelming, it's because students only see the final step, which is like submitting the applications. But there are many other smaller steps that you can break it down into. So today we're gonna break those steps down and create a very manageable timeline that you see here. So we're gonna start with the preparation stage. Whoops, sorry. All right, so we're gonna start with the preparation stage. Um, So this is the preparation stage. Typically, most students start 12 to 18 months before um, their university deadlines. Okay, so realistically, um, let's say you graduate, okay, right now it's 2026. So let's say you are done with school in 2027 June. If you're done with school in 2027 June, you need to start applying now. Now, I mean, you need to start working on your application, start picking out the schools that you want to study since summer. So June, July, you can work on schools, you can pick out schools, you can make lists, but December, January is the typical deadlines that you have to submit. So, um, phase one, research and planning. So this is everything that we talked about earlier. You start with university research, academic requirements, standardized tests, and language proficiency. So this is what you can do now, especially because if you have to take tests, you need to study for it. So this is the perfect time to start studying for it once you know um what sort of requirements the school has. This is a perfect time to start studying. So this is 12 to 18 months before the university application deadlines. And the next, so this is going to be 3 to 6 months before the deadlines. So typically it will be like right now, because if you are, let's say, graduating in 2027 June, then this is essentially summer. June, July, this is essentially summer. Well, not in Yangon because it's rainy season, but in the US it would be summer. So this is the summer before you start your senior year. So right now, what you can do like 3 to 6 months before deadlines, students should be creating application accounts, application portals, and we'll talk about application portals in more detail in the next session. So you should be creating application portals. You should be preparing for any sort of entrance exams, and you should start organizing your documents. Once you know what documents your school needs, you should start preparing for them so that you have enough time to be getting these documents. So, one of the biggest mistakes, I mean, I've mentioned so many mistakes, but a common mistake is that students usually underestimate like how long um applications take or how long essays take. Like the medical report, for instance. I mean, you're not going to get your results like literally the same day. It might take 3 business days, it might take a week. So it's always good that you start preparing early to ensure that you fulfill all these requirements. All right. So, like I mentioned earlier, we were talking about university application portals. So, different countries have different portals. So, it's always good to check how you can submit your application to the university. So, here, these are the countries that use a centralized application system. So the US, for instance, they have Common App. So all like if you want to apply to any school in the US, you just use Common App because all universities in the US are on Common App. So you use Common App. For UK, you use UCAS. So all UK schools, regardless of whatever you want to apply, you apply it through UCAS. And Canada, typically they have like OUAC, which is for universities in Ontario, and the other Education Planner BC is for universities that are in British Columbia, and Apply Alberta is for universities that are in Alberta. And you have other individual portals. So typically, you only need one account and one application for like several universities. Like in the US, for instance, you can apply to a total of 20 schools. UK, you can apply to a total of 5. Canada, I mean, I don't think there's a limit. So these are the portals that exist for the main countries. And then other countries such as these have their own admission portals, which means that each university have their own website for you to apply. So, I mean, US, UK, Canada is straightforward. You just create one account, you're done. But if you're going to apply to 5 schools in China, you need 5 application portals. So, this is why it's important that you create application portals beforehand so that you can fill out information, especially because let's say like if you're studying in Singapore, you have 3 schools, you have 3 application portals. It's going to take you time to fill out your personal information, your academic history, your teacher info, and many more. So it's always advised that you create application portals um, once they open. Okay, so this for students that are graduating next year, this is going to be coming soon, September. So here, this is when you start asking when you start um ask like getting your recommendation letters from your teachers. So I typically recommend that you start requesting recommendation letters from your teacher around August, September, so that you can get it in time and so that teachers have enough time to write um, thoughtful recommendation letters for you. So um, request recommendation letters. And then another thing to note as well is sometimes they have some universities have early deadlines. Let's say if you want to study medicine in the UK, the deadline is going to be October 15th, while every other school has deadlines in December, January. It's Oh, wait. Okay. So it's going to be, well, every other school will have deadlines in December, January. Like a specialized program like studying medicine in the UK is going to be October 15th. At the same time, some US schools, if you want to apply early, it's going to be like November. And most of the time, recommend if you're gonna take the SAT, I recommend that you take it latest October so you have time to get your SAT score and so that you can submit your SAT scores if you have any deadlines in December. Okay. Just another note, please do not ask recommendation letters to your teacher like 2 days before the deadline. Try and ask them ahead so that you get the best recommendation letter from your teachers. Um, so that they can write really thoughtful ones. They can recommend you for the program. All right. So this is when you start submitting your applications. So normally this is going to be in November, December, January. So this is where you submit applications. Sometimes for EU exams as well, the entrance exams open. And then here, as you submit applications, typically this is when you settle your application fees too. So it is also important to note that some schools have application fees. So for every application that you submit, every school that you submit, there's going to be a certain amount. I think in the US, it's 75 minimum, like 50 to $75 uh, per university, but sometimes it can be more. So as you submit your applications, also make sure that you are preparing you've prepared application fees, which you can normally pay with like a credit card. All right, and then make sure that when you're submitting your applications, you double check everything because sometimes if you miss out something, it can delay your application, or if you submit the same thing twice, it can also delay your application. So before you press submit, please um please check everything. All right, we're almost done. This is the last one. I hope I'm not boring you all, but we're almost done. Okay, so this is the last stage. I think it's the last, yeah. So this is the last stage. So after you submit your applications, it's not over because there's still a lot of things that you'll have to do. Universities can request official documents. So in Japan, for instance, some Japanese universities require that you mail the physical documents. So for those, for instance, once you're done submitting your online application, you need to physically mail documents to Japan. Sometimes Singapore schools, they want you to come show the official papers to them in person at their school, or you have an online Zoom call where you hold up your paper to them, and then they check that your documents are official and they verify that. So they're still verifying documents. And then at the same time, sometimes if you don't have documents ready, you submit your application first, you pay the fee, and then some schools allow you to submit the additional documents later on. All right. So this is the master application timeline. I hope all of you took photos. If you want me to go back, you can let me know in the Q&A portion, and then I can show you these slides again to those of you that couldn't get any photos. Okay, this I want you to take a photo of because this is the application timeline for most countries. So these are when it opens. These are the EA is like early. You apply early. ED you apply early. You Here you have UK, Canada, Singapore. Okay, so this is just like a master application timeline. This is just a master application timeline. You can take a photo of. I don't expect anyone to memorize these dates, but the purpose of this is mainly just to show that the deadlines are different every country. But there are two main lessons that I want to share here is that first, like I said, every country has different deadlines. And secondly, starting gives you more options. So depending on which country you're applying for, just take a look at when the application portals open, when are the deadlines, so that you have a better idea of when you need to be ready by. All right. So, okay, let me check what the next slide is. Don't make these mistakes. All right. Don't make these mistakes, please. I've seen students make all of these mistakes. They start too late, they ignore deadlines, they write essays at 2 a.m. or they write essays at like literally 11:59 p.m. before the 12 o'clock deadline. Or they forget documents. Sometimes they submit their applications and they forget to submit additional documents. So trust me, you don't want to learn this the hard way. So please don't make these mistakes. Please ensure that you have, you know, completed everything you need to complete, shared all the documents you need to share, prepared everything in advance. Okay, so before we do an activity section, I just want to check with the UniLearn team if there is uh, anything that they would like to add in this point in time.
No, teacher, I don't think so. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so this is also very similar to the activity that we did today, but this is me testing how much you guys are listening. Let's get started. So just like the one that we did before, this is how to participate. So let's get started with the first question. Okay, which teacher should you ask for a recommendation letter? All right, so we went over this actually very recently. I'm gonna start the countdown, and I want you guys to react with what you think is correct. Okay, I'm very glad to be seeing all hearts. Okay, a teacher who barely knows you. Okay, come on. Okay, so as many of you guessed, the correct answer is, oh, okay, but the correct answer is a teacher who knows your strengths and growth. All right. Okay, so this is actually, I guess, a trick question because we didn't really go over this too much. But how many universities do you think students should typically apply to? So if you don't, if you already know, please answer. But if you don't, just take a guess because I'll be sharing that with you shortly. So starting the timer, please guess and respond. 10 plus, okay, mixed. Okay, most say 1 to 3. I see a lot of 5 to 8. Okay. Okay. Some 10 plus. Okay. Very ambitious. Okay, 5 to 8. All right. So generally, the number of universities that you want to apply to or that you should apply to depend on your goals. If you are, for instance, let's say sticking to one country, let's say you're only going to apply to for instance, China, then you can apply to 3 to 5 schools. But in this day and age, Because everything is always changing, I always recommend that you apply to at least um 8 to 10 schools, just so that you can, but it also depends. If you're going to be applying to a variety of countries, let's say you're going to be applying to Canada, you're going to be applying to three countries in Europe, or you're going to be applying to one country in Asia, then you have like 5 countries in total, right? So you can kind of split like 3 countries like 3 schools per country. So then it's like 15. That's a lot, but so if you want to kind of diversify your university list, you want to apply to a number of countries, and I recommend applying to more than 5. But if you're choosing like maybe like 2 or 3 countries, then you can apply to 5 to 8. But generally, 5 to 8 is a very safe number. I don't really recommend applying to only 1 to 3 unless you are certain that this is the only school that you'll go to and that you're certain that you will 100% get accepted to the school. All right, so good job on many of you that actually picked the perfect number. All right, so we went over this. Which factor should students consider for first when choosing a university? So, which factors should students consider? All right. I see a lot that says program fit. Okay, I'm very proud. I'm looking at it through my phone. I don't know if you can see, but I see a lot that says program fit. Okay, so actually, all of you are correct. You should always look at your program fit. I mean, other things they can play a role in your decision, but the main thing should always be program fit. How do you like this program? How suitable is this program for you? So yes, program fit. All right. Um, okay, true or false? This is very, very easy. Um, a university ranked number 1 is always the best choice for every student. True or false? Looking at a lot of false, which is true. All right, so uh everyone's correct. A university ranked number 1 is not always the best choice for every student. As you know, we've gone through the slides. Oh, okay. I don't know where those lines came from. Okay, which document is most commonly required by universities? So I added some trick answers in here just to see if you guys are listening. But I think many of you are, as I've seen in the other one. All right, so let's get started. I mean, don't you think that they'll request a driver's license? I mean, they probably want to know that you can drive to their school, right? Or a birth certificate to make sure you're really a real person and not an AI robot, right? Okay, I couldn't trick you guys. But yes, the document that is most commonly required by all universities is always going to be your academic transcript. Okay, so I think this is the last question. I'm pretty sure all of you are going to get it right, but because of the application timeline that we went through, but how early do you think students should start preparing for their applications? As early as possible. Okay, I like that. Very, very prepared. Okay. I hope I didn't make you guys worry with everything you need to prepare. Okay, so it's a mix of 6 months to 1 year and as early as possible. Okay, so um Normally, 6 months to a year works, but to those, especially, let's say, like if you are applying for engineering or if you're applying for medicine and you need to take like the standardized test, then yes, it's good that you apply as early as possible because those majors are very hard to get into. So the earlier that you start studying, the better it is for your grades and your entire application. Yes, but normally 6 months to a year before would suffice. This is 6 months to a year before the deadlines. All right.